Hi, how are you? Welcome back to The Witchy Show, the greatest show on earth, the blah blah blah, no one cares. We're gonna talk about phases of the moon. No, we're not gonna talk about that. That's basic shit. There's 30,000 fucking channels out there that talk about the phases of the moon. There's even blog posts, Facebook groups, TikTok. Find your information wherever the fuck you want, but we're not talking about phases of the moon. We're talking about phases of magic as you get older. I feel like I've talked about this at some point, but I can't remember. So if this sounds familiar, just scream at me in the comments and be like, yo, motherfucker, you talked about this in this video. But I'm gonna talk about it now because I've got it written down in my book. Okay, you got a problem with that? Then get out my channel. Okay, so you know when you start practicing magic when you're young, like 18, 19, maybe even younger, and it's all new and shiny, and is maybe if you're practicing as like a teenager and you're like angsty and rebellious and gothic, and witchcraft is mysterious and magical. So you're like casting spells left, right, and center, doing rituals, so on and so forth. But as you get older, maybe into your 20s, you're doing a little less rituals and a little less frivolous, frantic casting. And then as you get into your 30s, it gets a little less. In 40s, 50s, 60s. By the time you're 60, an old hag of a crone, whether you're a man or woman, it doesn't matter. You're still a damn crone, because I don't think there is a male version of the crone. Would that be the hermit? Somebody in the comments tell me what the male version of the crone would be. Because there's the mother, maiden, and the crone. So what would the male versions of those be? Would it be the prince, the duke, and the king? No, that sounds wildly sexist. I have no idea if there even is a male version of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Maybe there isn't. Who knows? Everything in witchcraft is very feminine, and that's fine. That's how it's meant to be. It's a woman's art. It's a woman's craft. But men have made their way into it either through working elaborate rituals like Solomon, or working dark magics like various other male wizards and witches that are out there. I also don't really know if men have a term for witches. We mostly just call ourselves witches, but some people get offended by that because witch is a feminine term, and so people start calling themselves warlocks, but I'm like, that just sounds fantastical and television inspired. So witch it is. But random rambling aside, and point of video on point, the phases of magic are very much like the maiden, the mother, and the crone. In the maiden, you're very young, you're experimenting, you're throwing your magic at the wall hoping something sticks, you're experimenting with gods, goddesses, demons, various forms of magic, tools, crystals, cards, this, that, and the other thing. Are oracle cards still a thing? I know that they were massive on YouTube at one point, but I don't know if they are. I know there's a whole community dedicated to tarot and oracle cards, but I meant within the witchy space of YouTube. The Lady Grave Dancers, the Ember Honey Ravens, you know, this space of witchy YouTube, not the tarot reading section. But I don't know if that's still a thing, because I know Ember Honeyraven used to do a bunch of tarot hauls and oracle card hauls. I never understood oracle cards. But this is the maiden part, the exploring, the experimentation. Then there's the mother, the protective kinds of magics where you want to protect your house, your family, your finances. You want stability, you want this, that, and the other thing. And you start refining your magic, simplifying your rituals, so now that they don't take 45 minutes to 3 hours to do, instead they're like 20-minute, 30-minute rituals that you do if you need something big or if you need to work something over a longer period of time. You also grow and learn different forms of craft. You learn what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Eclectic witchcraft is not appropriate in most cases. I mean, if you're just borrowing like Wicca stuff and mixing in some gems and some herbs and some kitchen magic, I mean, that's not offensive. But if you're mixing hoodoo with Santeria, with Wicca, with Native American traditions, you're a racist. And that's the end of that conversation. You're probably not a racist, but you are doing it wrong, because that is considered cultural appropriation when you start mixing all of those things together, right? Like, don't do that. Don't be dumb. So you start to learn these things as you become in the mother aspect of the magic, okay? You learn essentially what's right, what's wrong. You develop your own morals. You develop your own code of ethics, if you will. Some people will refuse to curse. Some people refuse to do banishing magic. Some people refuse to cast spells because it's dangerous and threefold and personal gain. I mean, what is this, a fucking television show? Every time I take a shit, I'm breaking the threefold rule. So, you know, I'm doing harm to the microorganisms in my body by flushing them down the toilet. That's a really extreme, exaggerated example, but I think through the humor, you understand where I was going with that. So, and if you don't, not my fucking problem. So now you get into the crone aspect of your magics. You've experimented, you've cast your spells, you've done your rituals, you've protected your family, you've done this, your kids have grown up, they've moved out. So what does magic look like in your, like, I don't know, 50s and 60s? You're probably not sitting at an altar anymore. I don't know, maybe you are, maybe not. But in most cases, you're probably not going to the altar every day or every week and being like, oh my God, my life is falling apart, I need all this magic and I need to do this and I need to do that. No, you are way more wise and way more understanding of, okay, this is an appropriate time to burn a bitch to the ground or to bring in the money or to do this or to do that, and this is not an appropriate time to do that. You kind of understand and become more in tune with the flow of things and understand kind of how you can achieve the same result with little to no magic. And everything we do is magical as witches. When we walk through nature, or when we stop to literally smell the roses, or when we light incense, or take a shit. Whatever it is that you do, it is considered to be mostly magical. Some things we do is just mundane. But as you get older, you learn the difference between where the mundane stuff comes in that you have to do and where the magical stuff comes in that you have to do. And again, as you get older, you get wiser, you get smarter, you understand that, okay, this is when I would want to do my craft, and your craft becomes more settled. You have your certain spells, your rituals that have worked for you for years that you do over and over again because they've always worked. Your 20,000 Book of Shadows may become down to one and condensed, and it's just all of the magic and the teachings and the herbs and the stuff that you use today. It might just become much simpler, less ritualistic, less audacious, less giant altars filled with candles and crystals and all of this other stuff, because you need less to get the same shit done. And you'll learn that as you get older. And maybe you'll still be the type of person who has your giant altars and your giant crystals and your giant this and your giant that and so on and so forth. And you'll have your massive elaborate rituals and so on and so forth. And that's fine too. But I think for the majority of us, a lot of us tend to settle into our craft, and we understand that doing magic less it makes it more magical. Not only that doesn't make it more magical, but it also makes it more meaningful when we go to the altar to do our craft. Okay? I hope that made sense, and I hope you got something out of this, and if you didn't, then that's your fault, not mine. It might be my fault, I don't know. I'll have to see it post-editing, but I'm pretty sure you'll get something out of this. Who knows? I'm the Witchy Show. I ramble about everything and I talk about nothing. Okay? Love your face.